Hi, and welcome to the Core Reports Weekend Edition. My guest for today is R.S. Subramanian, the Senior Vice President South Asia at DHL Express, also a member of DHL Express's Asia Pacific Management Board. We're going to talk about logistics and DHL Express. Mr. Subramanian, thank you so much for joining me. So, this is a very interesting time, though all times might be interesting for a company like yours. There are a lot of shifts that are happening thanks to all the successive tariff threats that have been announced by the US government, and that's clearly is dominating mind space, global attention, and so on. So, you're a critical component of any company anywhere in the world, or many companies anywhere in the world who are trying to deliver products at a certain time and obviously trying to wrestle with this. So, what is going on right now in the DHL war rooms or boardrooms as you try and cope with this?
I think for the kind of network we run and the scale and size of presence across the globe, I think on any given day there are many wars happening. Yeah, so every day is an exciting time, and our job, I think, is to run a network which brings peace to the boardrooms which are in tense moment. But having said that, some of the dynamic calls, wars possibly happen in customers' boardrooms, and we are there to support the changes which they want. Current situations are far more dramatic, but something like this is happening almost every month. Yeah, tariff changes, cross-border regulatory changes, new developments which are expected to come. Many times it comes with the lead time, and therefore there is time for it to prepare. Currently there is lead time, but only thing is there is uncertainty about what might happen, and therefore that puts a twist into the whole tale. I was discussing with some of my colleagues in the network elsewhere, and lot of our customers, especially in Asia, are also discussing various scenarios in terms of what might happen to tariffs. And if the tariff changes little bit, or tariff completely creates a barrier, or if there are certain kinds of sanctions, what product categories will get affected, how will the supply chains change, and what kind of actions which they need to initiate to ensure that there is business continuity. And as a logistics service provider, in each of the scenarios, there are a few things which we can do to support. And possibly in some cases, we are able to be part of the solution development process, and I think we participate actively. But it's enough uncertainty for anybody to be able to put their finger and then say, coming next few weeks, these are the actions I'm going to initiate. I think it's still wait and watch time. Large number of people in India, when you speak to them, they are waiting and watching. More importantly, I was quite impressed by there seems to be an innate confidence that we will manage. Yeah, it is a combination of what our business will do, business guys will do, and some amount of confidence on how the government is also maneuvering its way, maybe based on how they've managed the last few years. And last few years are not easy. There were enough challenges, but I think we found the right.
True, and we're already reducing tariffs, and
Yeah, so we're making
since
the
the
right
budget we've been
noises. I think
consistently
we're saying that we're flexible and we'll find our way. And the general expectation is that we'll find our way. So in that sense, the nervousness is slightly less here. There are some parts of the world where there is more war roomish preparation is needed.
So I'll come back to the war room and the current situation, but tell us about DHL Express as a company in India today. What is the scope of operations? Where are you present? How are you present? What are the kind of sectors that you work with predominantly?
Okay, so if I had to give you a picture on DHL, okay, DHL has 4 entities in the country. So I represent DHL Express, which is international time definite shipment, which is export and import of express cargo. The second group company is Blue Dart, which is the counterpart in domestic and possibly the only successful cargo aviation company, Blue Dart Aviation, which runs planes for domestic cargo movements. The third entity we have is DHL Global Forwarding, which is traditional freight forwarding, air freight and ocean freight, and customs brokerage. And the fourth entity we have is DHL Supply Chain, who run a successful network of almost 20 million square feet of warehouse, and anything to do with warehousing and logistics around the warehouse. I think all the 4 entities are quite successful in their segments, maybe in the top 1 or 2 or 3 players and are market leaders. So that's DHL. We employ, I don't know, 40 to 45,000 people in the country, significantly large footage, nearly fantastic coverage, maybe next only to India Post in the country in terms of reach. DHL Express, we are present in about 40 cities. Rest of the cities we cover through Blue Dart. We connect Delhi and Bangalore through our own freighters, 29 flights a week, which connects India to the hubs in East Asia, in Eastern Asian side, which is Hong Kong and Bangkok and Singapore, and to the Western side hubs, which is via Leipzig in Germany to US and Europe. So we run a fantastic network, possibly the largest player in the country, and very strong presence both in import and export materials. Significant investment in digitalization. I think best-in-class infrastructure. If you want to see what is possible to do in India and how a global express network runs, you need to walk into one of the DHL facilities and you will know you could have been in any other city and any other country. So we run a standardized process which works like a clock. The other item we are very proud of about DHL is that we are, as we speak, DHL Express is number one in the list of great places to work globally. Yeah, for a courier company with 120,000 employees globally in 200 odd countries, that's a distinction very difficult to get. In India, we were number one and we've been in the top 5 for the last 6 or 7 years. So we are a very employee focused, great governance company, so which we are very proud of.
Right. So you talked about the connectivity with Asia, and I assume you mean South Asia, Southeast Asia, which you also oversee,
Yes.
sitting in India. So tell us about what's changed there in the last decade or so in terms of the way things are flowing. I'm talking about trade and its impact on your business.
See, few things which, if you look through the last decade, there's 2-3 items which are significantly notable. One, I think, go back 10 years, it's sort of rise of Asia. Yeah, so that's been happening for maybe 2 decades. Significant manufacturing capacity and capability getting built, not just in China, but across the Southeast Asian ring. And maybe India came to the party little late, but I think we're catching up really well. And there's significant amount of manufacturing ramping up in India. So that's one big phenomenon. Second thing which is happening is post-COVID. Yeah, there is, even within that, there's migration of global supply chains, and they are migrating out of China and into some countries, and India is also a big beneficiary. Possibly Vietnam will come in first, and bits of Thailand, Philippines, India, maybe the biggest beneficiaries, and we see that shift happening. Otherwise, I think if I look over last 10 years, there is significant, this has been a continuous phenomenon, which is that manufacturing from elsewhere, usually Western world, moving into India. Yeah. And now there is some amount of manufacturing which is moving from the Asian side into India. I don't think it is close shop, lock, stock and barrel come here. It's more a case of diversification and capacity expansion is happening here rather than all eggs in the same basket, which is what businesses have learned during COVID.
Right. And in your in your report that you put out every year, and it's a very interesting report because you're also saying that at a macro level that you are not seeing trade reduce. You're actually saying it may slow down because of all of this, but it is not going to shrink. That's one part. The second is, of course, what's shifting within Asia. So, for example, if I were to take that mobile phone, which we all understand now, so what you're saying is that there are two things happening at the same time. One is parts coming into India from, let's say, China. Other is maybe entire phones being manufactured in India, entire phones being manufactured in China and going. So there is a certain intricateness in the way things are moving around, which is becoming more and more complex or more and more intricate. So how is your world changing or has changed because of that?
See, what has happened is the sophistication of the supply chains which we need to manage for our customers is changing. I think bottom line is that only. So if when they were trading, when they were just importing for selling, there is one side of type of support which is needed. When they're getting into manufacturing, they're getting into components, they're getting into component manufacturing, the raw material sourcing, then it brings in a different scale of supply chain involvement. Not just bringing in goods, but possibly the kind of warehousing needed, kind of services needed, value-added services in the
Right.
just in. And increasingly, the more points you manufacture, the more complicated the supply chain becomes and just-in-time starts into play. And I keep saying this, which is that the more you discover better formats, it is like the inventory levels is the real issue in all manufacturing. Yeah. If you want to have control over inventory levels, you need to have supply chain which moves fast and with precision which is needed. And just-in-time supply chains do exactly that. And I think companies are now focusing on a few things, yeah, which is combination of what's happening now to what happened during COVID and what movement started a bit earlier in terms of diversification. And earlier it was finding more efficient and cost-effective, closer to market manufacturing. Now it is a case of building resilience into their supply chains, building not having eggs in the same basket, and also discovering better stability and flexibility for future uncertainties, which is what is being planned into. And therefore, I think India is a net beneficiary on all of these things. Yeah, so therefore it's exciting time for a player like DHL because every day we're doing different kinds of solutioning for our customers, and we're in
Yeah.
a good
And
space.
what's a industry or sector that best represents this complexity and intricateness from your perspective, and where you're seeing these changes in the last few years?
All manufacturing, electronics,
And that
tech,
would be the biggest.
electronics, tech, automobile, engineering, manufacturing, all of them show this significantly. As we speak, there is a large semiconductor manufacturer who's setting up operation in India, and their entire supply chain has to be created here. The success of that might lead to more and more lines coming up, and so therefore it's, in a sense, it's proof of concept. But I think it's a big move, and some of these things
This is
don't
something
take.
that you are working with.
Yeah, we are working with, and some of it is not going to happen overnight. All of these are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year lead time items, and therefore some of these tariff changes and what we are talking about is a sudden intervention. But these moves have to happen in a planned manner, and therefore I think the decisive moves have started happening. And tariffs, some of these tariffs in these industries is only incidental. It might only hasten the pace of change, but the change is already happening, and it's very visible in these industries. Um, I think India will become a, like you said, um, first we are consuming the end product, then you get an assembly happening, and after that component manufacture will happen. The entire ecosystem will get created, and that's a natural progression. We see it in mobile phones, we'll see it in, we saw it in automobile. If you ask me, 20 years back, 25 years back when manufacturing happened, and 10 years down the line, you had whole host of auto ancillaries manufacturing. And today, almost the automobile manufacturers and auto ancillaries and their suppliers are also feeding global supply chains. Whether their quality, their technology, their scale, everything has gone up. Some of it because of domestic scale, but all of it because of significant improvement in quality and partnership in technology and creation of manufacturing base. I think it's a fantastic virtuous cycle.
And which are the, again, the top examples that represent this? So you're saying one is, let's say, inbound, and maybe all of this, including mobile phones, was mostly inbound at one time. Auto components was also maybe largely inbound because they were feeding global multinationals, but who are manufacturing in India for India. But we've also seen now, including in auto, for example, Hyundai, Maruti, they are all big exporters. So how is, and from your perspective, where has been this? Because that changes your, let's say, your sort of standard operating procedure as well.
See, we are the logistics service provider, right? We go where the customer is going, and we create capacity for what plans our customers are having, and we are able to play into all their requirements. When they're setting up factory right from scratch, we are able to move equipment for them, be part of their project management. When they're setting up warehousing, we are being part of their planning and establishment of warehouses. Uh, In-plant logistics we do for some of the customers, and then from there on, finished goods and aftermarket spares, the whole host of items. We are involved in almost every part of the supply chain, and we are able to plan for our customers, and therefore DHL plays into each one of these pieces.
Hmm. So I'm going to come back to that in a bit, but let me ask you the larger question which we touched upon, which is that as DHL, you believe that growth will continue despite
Yeah, see,
everything.
for example, if you see the India Trade Atlas report which came out about 10 days back, um, growth will increase from where it is. Yeah, so it fell in the last 5 years, 2.7 to 2, and it's expected to go to 3. So the outlook, current uncertainty makes you feel that things might slow down, but the reality is things will catch up. and things will improve is what the growth says. And there's millions of data point crunching is giving this forecast. Invariably, the forecast is usually right. And so therefore, we will see a step up in growth. The report also points out to something very interesting, which says that in the middle of all the tariff, if somebody is worried that the growth will go away and sort of recession will happen globally, that's not going to happen. The growth might marginally slow down, but there will still be growth. Yeah, which I think is a very positive statement.
But what's the underlying assumption here? If you were to just look at it through an India lens, that the most underlying assumption is that people will continue to consume goods which are not found in their country, and
No, see,
therefore
there are
things will
some
keep.
interesting evidences which also says where is the room for international trade. It talks about in some parts about how much of the consumption in a country or a geography is manufactured within the geography and how much of it is coming from outside. That proportion has not changed significantly, and it is changing in favor of coming from outside. And that ratio is still 70-30 or 80-20, I think, in the report. And it shows that there is significant headroom for more items to come from outside. And therefore, and there is second evidence which is there, which is that international trade, if you measure the distance the goods are traveling on an average, and that kilometer doesn't come down. It might be driven by oil, it might be driven by commodities. It's a big rolled up number, but it points in one direction, which is saying that if globalization or global trade is shrinking, then the consumption should happen close by. But that's not happening. All the cats and dogs added together, the number still stays and it's still growing, which is you are still consuming goods from far off as much as you were
Right,
consuming earlier.
and the
you're
figure
not,
that the
you're
figure
not
that you have
going
is
back on that.
and the figure that you have is 5,000
5,000
kilometers,
kilometers, yeah.
which means that a lot of trade is still obviously moving from Asia to.
Sometimes within India, you may get a 3,000 kilometer stuff. Within the US, you may get a 5,000 kilometer distance. But discounting for all that, still it shows that large number of countries have to depend on international trade to keep their not just businesses, but their society running. And therefore, that's the foundation for international trade. And that's not going away.
And if you were to again think of a industry or one industry or two industry, let me go back to mobile phones. For example, India has been trying to reduce its imports of mobile phones, but we've not succeeded, and it's actually only gone up, and mostly from China, and leading to other there's a balance of trade problem as well. I don't know if it's a problem, but there is a imbalance. What typifies or what signifies this in your from your let's say portfolio of products or companies that you work with? I mean, this shift, the fact that distances are long, the fact that they're traveling for longer times, and that's not changing.
See, that's not saying, which basically means that the international trade is here to stay. And therefore, as a company, we need to ensure that our network is tuned into these flows. But while this is true, the terrain is not the same. Yeah, there is a lot of efforts at countries trying to protect their borders in terms of cross-border trade. Trade barriers are going up. There are concerns on security. There are concerns on safety, and therefore the non-tariff barriers are also going up. And as a global service provider, we have to be mindful of it and help our customers be aware of these changes and have systems which will help them maneuver it seamlessly, and therefore they are able to do their business with ease. Yeah. So this is a possibly something which keeps us awake, because the more we are on top of it, we'll be efficient. The less efficient we get because of these barriers, and our systems are to be recreated, it adds cost to us and it makes us less efficient. So therefore, we are on top of it all the time. One, keeping customers informed, but two, running our systems efficiently so that we are a efficient service provider.
So if I were to look at the composition, so obviously e-commerce itself is a big chunk which has evolved and grown very rapidly in recent years. So that's changing or changed. Even India as a country wants to export more directly through e-commerce. When I talk to people like maybe Flipkart or a Walmart, they all want to export more from India, which I guess goes through you. So that's change. That's the changing part. What is not changing? what are the kind of products and goods that continue to remain as they were in terms of the way they're flowing between countries to country? For example, let's say if China is importing iron ore, India exports a large amount of iron ore. That perhaps has remained consistent for 2 decades or more.
Not going to change in a hurry.
It's not going to change in a hurry because China needs iron ore and we don't have that much consumption here. And so that's really my question. So iron ore is a very simple example in that sense, but what is not changing as you look around the globe in terms of what people are importing or exporting?
No, see, I think there is something which the basket of commodities which are, I call it local competency. Yeah, or resources available abundantly. Yeah, whole basket of agri commodities in India is not going to come from outside, and I am sure the government will want to keep it that way, because that's what keeps India ticking. Whole host of minerals will come out of India. Yeah, so the real fight is on manufacturing and trading. Yeah, so the trading pressures happen to local manufacturers if your cost position is poorer. Yeah, so therefore, the effort is to ensure that how do we become viable in as many categories as possible, which can be manufactured in the country and where there is significant demand in the country. I think the fight is in the manufacturing space. There is some fringe fight in the other natural resources, but I think that's manageable. Yeah, because the core in India is strong in terms of local resources, and that will remain. That's not going to go away anywhere. So therefore, there is a non changing constant, and the pressure and fight is in manufacturing and finding the right value.
Got it. And let me now go back to the war room. And you said that there were many occasions which were similar, but may not have had as much advance warning as you had now, which is maybe 1 month. But let's say, I'm guessing the Red Sea
See, what is
crisis
the
is
Red
one
Sea
kind.
crisis? For example, 10, 15 years back, we had this ash cloud in Europe. Suddenly, one fine day, there are no flights flying. For example, last week only, there was a situation in LHR, right? So there's a fire and suddenly no flights flying. It could have been a disruption if it was a bigger issue, and this can happen anytime. So therefore, we need a network which has to be alert all the time. And I think I always say that DHL is a company which is preparing for contingencies all the time. For even on a normal day, if you are giving a shipment to me and it's supposed to, there is a plan A for it to go. There is always a plan B and there is a plan C and there is plan D possibly, which is if it doesn't go today, what will happen tomorrow? So therefore, the network has multiple backup options lined up. We face a challenge when everything gets wiped out. Yeah, that's a once in a lifetime, but we had a few occasions when they happened. And when all those times, we possibly were the fastest to come back because we were watching.
But are these public events or are these things that we may never have known about? Okay.
Public event, all public events only. This war like this or financial crisis or the 9/11 or every one of them is disruptive. But it is your systems, your alertness, your flexibility you built in. Like I said, multiple contingency option. And I think a bit to do with culturally want to be up and running all the time. And we're back in no time. So
let me spend a little time on India now and within India. So when you talk about being up and running, India has some unique situations, and I'm talking about natural situations, which is, for example, you have extreme heat and then you have rains. Rains continuously and consistently disrupts movement of people, goods, and we've seen it, for example, in the south of India, we've seen east of India, west of India, depending on which time of year. So at the same time, I mean, as I can see as a customer, I can see that I'm still getting delivery of goods in 24 hours, at least in main cities. And that's changed because even maybe 7, 8 years ago, sometimes it was taking longer. And yeah, so if I'm paying for it, then it's definitely comes to me. And I can see smaller towns in India also being connected much faster. So how are companies like yours managing the demands of the customer and at the same time, all the challenges that you face on, including environment that I can think of?
see, there are 2, 3 sides to it. Yeah. One is the infrastructure which you create for yourself. I can think of a situation, for example, 20 years back, when the floods happened in Mumbai. Okay, so we used to have single customer service call center in Mumbai, and no, 20 years, 2005, we had a fire in our building.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a fire in our building, and our call center went down. And this was a single call center, and we had to be up
But
and
that was
running.
the same year we had the floods as well.
Yeah, then the floods came. Yeah, first the fire and then the floods. Yeah, so we've completely disrupted. We were out for almost 24 hours. Okay. So then we flew about 40 people from Mumbai to Chennai and set up a temporary call center and moved our people to different other DHL divisional offices, and we were up and running in 24 hours time. But that taught us something. Then we said, okay, let's find a disaster recovery site. So we formed another site in Chennai. We had a few people in Chennai. Over time, we made it 50-50. Yeah, so we had 2 floods after that in Mumbai, and we handled everything out of Chennai. And after that, we had 2 floods in Chennai, we handled everything out of Mumbai. So one is to be ready with a disaster response possibility and therefore build flexibility everywhere. Second also is we have a network of own and partners. Yeah, series of partners, and India is something which you cannot cover on your own. You need to have series of partners, and that builds the kind of flexibility which you need. And therefore, that answers the question which you are asking. On any given day, you have a backup available. Yeah, and that backup works almost always. And it is made to work because you have a network which is talking to it, and there is enough technology and there is full amount of control.
And the speed obviously has improved because the roads have improved and you're able to deliver much faster.
The progress in the road network is fantastic. Yeah, the Bharatmala or your Golden Quadrilateral and beyond. What used to take 3 to 4 days is now less than 48 hours. And the promise is Delhi-Bombay in 12 hours. Yeah, that will be a game changer. But we are seeing that happen so let's say Bombay-Pune is significantly, but it's also set to become a 2-hour distance. Bombay-Ahmedabad is already very, very good. So therefore, the road network significantly has improved things. GST, if you ask me, is a game changer in terms of removing disruptions and the delays in the whole process. In and out of the city is still a challenge. Yeah, that's something to be discovered. But I think kind of infrastructure which is being created in Mumbai, for maybe 5 years down the line, we'll see a difference. But that's to be watched for. But I think the infrastructure is a big change. Little bit of regulatory changes which have happened have made a huge difference to the quality of movement here. But I think we still have a long way to go in terms of improving ease of doing business. Yeah. Why do I want that? Because I think we've always felt that our logistics cost for our businesses is very high. Yeah, for the economy, 14%, oft quoted number. I don't know how it is calculated, but it's very widely quoted. And most efficient economies have 5, 6, 7%.
China is about 10.
And even if we want to be below 10, yeah, it's a long climb.
But the Minister of Transport has said that he wants to take it to 9% in India.
Absolutely. I think it's a great aspiration.
So, anyway, my question would be, how would we do that? I mean,
Yeah. So, I think there is something which government will do. There's something which private businesses should do. I think from the government side, there are some soft things and there are some hard things they need to do. The soft things are slowly coming into place, which is a publishing a national logistics policy is a great step forward. Then Gati Shakti is an idea to create the right infrastructure and put the right plans on the roadmap, which is fine. Creation of infrastructure, road we spoke about, airport infrastructure, some of them privatized, some of them not privatized, but still the expansion in capacity is absolutely important. And I think more importantly, there is a lot of focus on passenger, but there should be focus on trade infrastructure, which is the cargo movement will significantly jump. Sagarmala is an interesting example. The inland waterways is interesting, but more importantly, the multimodal push, Delhi-Mumbai corridor kind of a thing. All of them are creating capacity. Because India is a place where for Mumbai, you put a flyover, day one, it's having traffic jam because it's coming so late and the capacity is getting created. So now we are catching up. Maybe 5, 6 years down the line, we can think that we are right sizing for the kind of capacity and expansion which we are looking at. But I think we are always running to catch up. But there is a need to build infrastructure. So there is soft side of policy. There is second is infrastructure. Third, I think there is desperate need to simplify a lot of regulations. Yeah, make it easy.
Give us some examples.
Okay, see, for example, the big picture Income Tax Act is very good. Yeah, it's very digital, faceless, first class, etc. But then, for example, companies have to do TDS. Still, the Act wants us to give a physical proof of TDS. Yeah, whereas you can actually digitally reconcile it. Now, this is a bit like you are in a position where digitalization has happened, but the physical procedures are not going away. I think we should slowly migrate into thinking digital and not just automating a manual process. You understand? So,
But
computerizing a manual
this
process
slows down
significantly. It not necessarily slows down, but it is a wasteful act for me. I bill about 60,000 customers in a month. Okay, and some of them cut 1% TDS, some of them cut 2% TDS, some of them don't cut TDS. It's a maze for me to know who cut and who did not cut. And then after that, to collect the evidence that they did deduct and they did deduct rightly and reconcile it and then make a quarterly return and then match it with what actually should have been paid. And every year we write off a few crores. Yeah, this is after a few 100,000 man-hours have been spent on a needle in haystack exercise. This is easily avoidable. But this is one very small, simple example. And there are hundreds like this. Yeah, I think a clean slate will make life, without knowing what you're doing, you just dropping the transaction cost, right?
Right. So, and this is internal. And what about customs and whether inbound or outbound? What are one or two things that you would like to see?
I think we moved 3-4 times in terms of efficiency. Yeah, the electronic clearances are really, really good. For Express, the ECCS is our system which works extremely well. It's created on a PPP between customs and the industry, and it works extremely well. And it's very, very efficient. So, and we are now in the process of becoming completely paperless. Yeah, there's a little bit gap in the paperless trade, but we will become paperless, and that's a significant efficiency which is happening. Capacitization is the problem. Yeah, to manage peaks and to manage the surge which is coming and with the volumes which is coming, the physical capacity at the airports, the processing capacity at clearance ports is usually a challenge, and that's something which is being addressed, and we'll see improvement there.
So you are for example, you have a big base in Delhi,
Yes.
and most of your inbound.
No, we are based in Delhi. We are based in Bangalore. We do. We have one in Mumbai. We have one in.
But Delhi is the
Chennai.
largest for
Delhi and
processing?
Bangalore are our own terminals. Mumbai and Chennai are common user terminals. So everybody clears and operates out.
So when you say capacity and expand capacity, would you say expand at these same places, or is it maybe look at new airports or new?
See, we are expanding, and we would like to see the common user terminals expand, or maybe get places for us to run a terminal of our own to manage our own shipments, which is what we are discussing. Hopefully, we'll see something in Mumbai. Similar might happen in Chennai in due course. We'll have to wait and watch. The capacity is for us to, one, handle shipments seamlessly. Two, there is security screening, X-rays, and processing capacity and customs clearance manpower needed to clear from the authorities side. All of them have to match the timelines we promise and seamless flow of goods. For what we do is we want to clear shipments while it is in transit. That's express.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we do about 60% of our shipments are cleared on arrival. As it comes, it doesn't wait, it goes. So we would like to see this number go to 40, 50, another 20-30% more, 80-90%. The more we clear in air,
So which
the
means
better is the
okay. So even before it's landed here, it's already cleared.
on pickup, I process the papers and it goes into the system and it's assessed and it's cleared. And therefore, when the shipment lands, it is ready to go. It just does security screening and it's out for delivery. So that's the speed which we want to maintain.
And this is what you're seeing, obviously, in other parts of the world.
Yeah, so we are at about 60% here. It can be 100% in some ports, which are duty-free ports, let's say Singapore or Dubai, or might be 70, 80, 40, 50, 20. Various patterns are there. I think we're not worse of the lot, but we can be much better. We can have a single window clearance because there are multiple authorities to whom the rest of the 40% go through. And that we can get smarter. There is a plan on paper and it's under formation.
When you say multiple authorities, you mean?
No, certain category of shipments will need to get no objection certificate from, let's say, pharma shipment or a fashion accessory or a wildlife certification, whatever, for phytosanitary. So all of them can happen through one portal rather than go to multiple sites and therefore multiple handling, many hands.
But these are imports, as in B2B.
So they are imports, and similar complications are there for exports also. So therefore that process can get streamlined. My belief is that greater visibility, simplification will lead to greater compliance and greater efficiency. Yeah, we're much better than we used to be before, but there is some more way to go.
So let me come back to that, the boardroom and the ballroom, which we started off with. What would you tell businesses who are, let's say, in either import sensitive or export sensitive industries? How should they be preparing for a world where logistics is becoming a more and more critical part? Or rather, no, actually, it was always becoming critical, but let's say becoming a little more unpredictable than before.
See, I think the core for international trade is to establish supply chain resilience. Yeah, so if you say, I want a resilient and flexible supply chain, then you need to line up a not dependent on single sourcing option, multiple sourcing option, um, multiple paths to fulfillment of your customers' requirements. Be on the most efficient path, but we have a backup path ready. So therefore, building options into your network is the smartest way of doing it. Um, Certain categories are better managed, manufactured to scale, and or the supply chain can be built in such a way that you're able to near shore or onshore certain activities of value addition and stay at your source for manufacturing certain components. That balance need to be built. Then you'll become highly flexible.
If I were to look ahead, India is part of your GT20, which is the top 20 geography. So what does that change, or how does that change anything for either your customers or your overall business? And how are you looking ahead?
See, what does GT20 tell you? GT20 tells us that in the past 5 to 10 years, we find that there are 20 countries globally who've shown great tendency to grow far faster than rest of the 200 countries we are present in. And these 20 countries are not growing faster because DHL is doing something different, but along with that, implicitly those economies are showing the kind of parameters which are preparing them for faster growth longer term.
And you use the word velocity of growth
Yeah,
rate as
scale
well.
and velocity, speed and scale of growth. Yeah, velocity and scale of growth, which is to certain economies are growing faster, and certain economies are also growing in scale, meaning bringing more to the table because the size of the economy is big. For example, the report, the Trade Atlas says that between India, China, and US, they will bring 30% of all growth which will come in the next 5 years. Just three countries. And India possibly will bring about 6 or 7% of that, which is a huge contribution. And that's what is increasing India's contribution to global trade. And India is set to grow at about 7% compared to 5% it grew earlier. That's an acceleration in their speed of growth, and that brings India into the top slot in terms of both scale and both speed. So therefore, it essentially tells you that these are countries where the growth needs to be supported. And therefore, what will happen is we will have work streams which will build infrastructure, which will build capability and orientation to support our customer base in the longer term. The strategy 2030, which talked about GT20, also talk about 3 or 4 other factors which are big drivers of growth for us. Yeah. Life sciences and healthcare globally is a fast growing segment and on which we think that there is big play for DHL Express. For example, the more complicated medical interventions for patients are coming up in future. Yeah, there is a lot of temperature control logistics. There is stem cell related medicines. And the higher end the medicines go or the treatments go, the supply chain behind them is also that much more sophisticated and complicated. And I think DHL, with its partnership with almost any major name globally in the life sciences field, I think is in a great position to be able to add value. And that's something which we want to build capability. And you will see here and more about this in the coming days. That's true for India. That's true for many.
And this new energy and life sciences is
Yeah,
like
the
is
next
the
is new
new,
energy.
yeah.
New energy is second sector, where when we say new energy, we're talking about not just solar and wind, which are big in India. We're also talking about the electric vehicle network, yeah, which means behind that there's a lot of battery logistics. I think battery logistics is a world of its own. Yeah, manufacturing of batteries, supply chain for batteries, storage of batteries, then batteries coming into the automobiles, battery swapping, battery replenishment, and then what do you do with expired battery, used batteries? How do you dispose them? How do you store them? All of them, I think, is significant amount of
So
sophistication.
you're already in
We're in
parts
it.
of this, but
We're doing this in many parts of the world, and there are many parts of the world where this is in its nascency. Yeah. So, and therefore, I think this is an area where we want to play into. E-commerce, we are already significantly present in. E-commerce, we think, is a global trend which will not go away and it will continue in the next 5 to 10 years. It's already 20-25% of our global footprint in terms of business share. And that will accelerate, and we will have to find more formats and better platforms and greater interfaces for our customers to do trade with us. And that plays into the next, which is called digital sales. Yeah, we want to, I think the future, the customer wants to do everything end to end online. And even service providers like us should be ready for that kind of a situation and should be able to play seamlessly. So therefore, there are few forward-looking thoughts and some things which are already happening here and which is linked to how the economy globally is shifting.
and tell us a little bit about the business from a sustainability point. Of course, sustainability is embedded into everything, but e-commerce also disaggregates, which means there are more pieces flowing as opposed to, let's say, single consignments. How do those two worlds
See,
reconcile?
end of the day, what the consumer wants, you'll have to deliver. Yeah, so the business is going somewhere, and we'll have to follow them. We don't create the template. But sustainability is a big issue for us. We made a commitment that we'll be a carbon neutral entity in 2050. Yeah, that's a lofty comment, but there are intermediate goals, and we have a 2030 goal. 2030 goal which talks about what DHL will do and what DHL wants to do with their customers. Yeah, what do I mean by both? What DHL will do relates to our scope 1 and scope 2. Yeah, and what we want the customers to do relates to the scope 3, which we jointly create, and the carbon footprint which their shipments emit when they have to be delivered to their different customers. On scope 1 and 2, we made commitment about the fact that our network, we will change to electric. And we've committed that by 2030, two-thirds of all our fleet on the ground will be electric. Yeah. The second commitment which we made is that every single facility we will create from now on will be a carbon neutral facility. And then, or something which is environment friendly and which can become carbon neutral depending on the ecosystem in which. So we have 1 or 2 such facilities already in India. The last 2 facilities we created, first of all, the gateway we made at the Bangalore airport is nearly carbon neutral. It's LEED certified, and the airport became a solar fed airport, and therefore all power became renewable energy, and therefore that facility is nearly carbon neutral, and therefore that kind of a footprint we want to create. That's inside the house. But the other problem is what we fly in the air, and more than 70% of the carbon we as a business emit is in the air, the planes flying. And that cannot be neutralized without significant action. And we've taken a commitment on blending sustainable aviation fuel into our planes. And we've made a commitment that 30% of all fuel by 2030 will be SAF. That's easier said than done, because that much of SAF is not yet being produced.
As yet.
Not yet being produced. And we've taken lion's share of what is being produced. And as we speak now in 2024, I think DHL had the highest share of SAF blended into their planes. Yeah, that's a nice statement. It's still 3.2% is still the highest, and that much is the difficulty. But there is an on cost, and that on cost has to be in some form or the other managed with the customer. So we've made a product called Go Green Plus. Yeah, the Go Green Plus, what it does is that you will get full visibility of what carbon footprint your shipments are emitting, and you can choose to neutralize X percentage. It can be 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 40% for a premium. Yeah. So therefore, as a customer who's made a commitment to say, by 2040, I'll become carbon neutral. So you have a 15-year runway to become carbon neutral. And one of the areas you need to take care is your scope 3. And this product gives you a initiation into neutralizing the scope 3 product. And therefore, what I'm very happy is that we launched the product in India about 6-8 months back. We have, believe it or not, 8,000 plus customers who signed up for a Go Green Plus contract, and between 10 to 20 to 30% neutralization they've taken, because they made commitment to their customers, or they are being asked by their importers saying that you need to show me a roadmap. how you will set off your carbon footprint. And therefore, it's a win-win for us. It's a great step forward for the customer, but I'm hopeful that we will hit the deadline earlier than before. In the interview which you had with EAL chairman, she made a mention about how they are working on SAF manufacturing in the country. And I think India is moving forward, right? There was an interview you only had with Indian Oil chairman who said that when you go into the petrol bunks today, you'll get 15% biofuel, right?
It's a
Already
target,
blended,
yeah.
already blended. So
Yeah,
these
ethanol
are
blending is,
these are all game changing, right? You don't see it at all. You don't realize it. But these are significant changes. So a government can do this. Government still has not put any restrictions on the businesses here. There are countries where there is strictures which need to be complied by. We are present in so many countries, and therefore we have to be mindful of the barriers everywhere. But our sustainability commitment and the actions which you have taken, we are in course to achieve that.
right. Last couple of questions. So one is, DHL is a big brand and it's been around, started in the US, now owned by German Deutsche Post. Now, what is the biggest competitive advantage that you have, and what will it take to keep that advantage going, and seen through from an India market perspective?
From India market perspective, I think we were the pioneer. So I think starting with,
So
I keep telling my people that we are the pioneer and we are market leader on day one. Yeah, but we are not just a market leader, but I think DHL has been a market creator. Yeah, this segment in India has been created by DHL's category creation job. What do I mean by that? I think every time we go to a customer, so we're all the time looking at the businesses and supply chains and the manufacturing lines. We map it out to say that how can this task which my customer is doing can be done smartly. And we're developing solutions which can be done smartly, which means that the net delivered cost of doing that task will be better. It can be better quality for their customer, faster to the market, faster cycle time for their businesses, whatever. So therefore, DHL has brought the express thinking into the country, and that is and we think express, and that's our singular biggest asset and our DNA, or our strong point, USP of DHL. Second is that we created the DHL network, the express network in the country. Yeah, we were the first possibly to do a full-fledged express service centers, on-site airport gateways, 24/7 customer service. Possibly, we are still the only player who gives 24/7 customer service for our customers. The digital tools which are in play, almost all of it, DHL possibly is a pioneer. Yeah, today customer can ship, get his bills, understand about tariffs and regulations in 200 countries, all of them at the press of a button through DHL systems are available, My DHL Plus, My Bill, My GTS. And there are shipping tools available and interfaces available for the customer. So, the digitalization is something we're discovering. What I am very proud of is the work we've done with customs. Yeah, I think we are continuously in conversation with customs for simplification of regulations. We played our role as a trade facilitator and a thought leadership in terms of what is the smartest way of doing something where customs get the control which they want and the customers get the convenience which they want to be able to do ease of doing business. I think DHL is playing that role extremely well. I think we've shown the way. I spoke about us being a number one employer. We've shown the way to the market that in an industry like a courier industry, you can be a fantastic employer. I think we'll make a difference we make a difference to the lives of almost 3,500 of our employees every day. I'm very proud of the fact that we are a market leader, but a quality leader. And every aspect of Express, I think DHL is discovering in the country.
So what's the through your career, and you've been in DHL for a long time now, so
20 years.
20 years. So is there or was there like those one or two occasions where you felt that, okay, this is how our business can really change lives or make a difference to lives? I mean, anything that you remember which has sort of left an impression on you, and maybe you quote it also.
See, what is most inspirational is what DHL does. We do something called disaster response team. There's something called DHL Go Help, where there is a global DRT team. What they do is when there is a natural calamity. Let's say there was an earthquake in Nepal. Yeah. Earthquake has happened, the damage has happened. Now the relief has to happen. But usually what happens when there is an earthquake of this type is that the airports gets choked in 12 hours time. Because suddenly relief, some 5, 6, 7, 8 flights come, they offload stuff all over the place, and no more flights can come, nothing else can move. Yeah, and that happened in Nepal. Yeah. DHL has a team who works with UN and with the local government, and invariably we get invited into some of these countries. Our team, the Go Help team, flies in, and what they do is what DHL can best do, which is manage the relief logistics. Yeah. In the case of Nepal, our team came in and less than 12 hours, we cleared the runways, we cleared the port, we set up a warehouse where all the relief material can come. You keep a full log of what has come in, and you take a log of what goes where, and streamline the process so that more flights can come in and life can restart. This is logistics at its best. But in crisis circumstances, people forget that there is logistics needed. So tsunami in Sri Lanka, there's a cyclone in Bangladesh, earthquake in Pakistan, earthquake in Nepal. The multiple incidents which happen in Indonesia every now and then, Haiti, everywhere, I think there is a DHL team which flies in and sets up logistics. Yeah. So there's no business involved here. I think, but this is your core competence and you're really contributing. And we say that our corporate purpose is connecting people and improving lives. Yeah. So what better way than this to deliver your purpose to the society? I think I'm really, really proud of the work which we do here.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for coming to our studio and speaking to us today.
Govind, I told you I'm a daily consumer of Core Report. Yeah, I'm really happy that I'm here chatting with you today. Today morning session already I've seen.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All the best to you.
Thank you so much.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.